A decorated U.S. Marine, a small-town Florida deputy, and a traffic stop that turned into one of the most cold-blooded ambushes in modern law enforcement history. This isn't just the story of a routine stop gone wrong. It's the story of Patrick Rene McDowell, a veteran who served his country in Iraq, but later spiraled into drugs, crime, and ultimately murder. On a quiet September night in 2021, Deputy Joshua Moyers pulled McDowell over. Within seconds, Moyers was shot in the face and the back, left dying on the roadside. What followed was a 5-day manhunt that terrorized an entire community, ending with McDowell's capture, shocking courtroom confessions, and finally, a death sentence. But how does a man who once wore the Marine uniform end up on Florida's death row? And why did he openly beg jurors to execute him? Stay with me, because this is one of the darkest, most shocking cases we've ever covered. Welcome to Death Row Diaries, where we take you deep inside America's most haunting true crime cases, the murders, the trials, and the last moments of those condemned to die. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss these stories. We uncover the truths, the lies, and sometimes the last words of the people history would rather forget. Today, we're telling the full story of Patrick Rene McDowell, the man who killed Deputy Joshua Moyers in cold blood and ended up with a death sentence he himself demanded. Patrick Rene McDowell wasn't always a criminal on the run. Born in Harrisburg, Illinois, he grew up in an ordinary Midwestern family. By the 2000s, he joined the U.S. Marine Corps and was deployed to Iraq. To those who knew him back then, McDowell looked like a man on the right track, disciplined, patriotic, loyal. But after returning from war, the cracks began to show. His father later said McDowell struggled with severe PTSD, depression, and even physical health problems. Instead of receiving the long-term support many veterans desperately need, McDowell drifted. By 2011, he was living in Jacksonville, Florida, and his life was unraveling. He picked up charges for drug possession, forged checks, and probation violations. His last arrest before the murder came in 2019 when he was caught with cocaine and paraphernalia. He was sent to Veterans Treatment Court, a system designed to give struggling vets a second chance. But even there, McDowell couldn't keep himself steady. By 2021, he was jobless, deep in addiction, and bouncing between run-ins with the law. The Marine who once served his country was now spiraling fast. And in September of that year, he would make a decision that would change everything. But before we get there, let's pause. If you're finding this story gripping, do me a favor. Hit that like button so YouTube knows you want more deep dives like this. It helps the channel grow, and it lets us keep bringing you the darkest, most detailed cases on Death Row Diaries. September 23, 2021, Nassau County, Florida. Deputy Joshua Moyers was just 29 years old. He had a reputation for being calm, sharp, and deeply committed to the people he served. That night, just before midnight, Moyers noticed a burgundy minivan at a gas station. The van had a stolen license plate. Inside, Patrick McDowell and his passenger, 28-year-old Noel Gale. The two had been smoking meth throughout the night, driving around, high and paranoid. Moyers pulled them over near Sandy Ford Road, just outside Callahan. At first, it looked routine. He asked for identification. Gale showed her license, but McDowell handed over a fake name. Over the radio, Moyers reported the mismatch. He calmly walked back to the driver's side door, placed his hand on the handle, and asked McDowell to step out of the vehicle. That's when it happened.
McDowell pulled out a handgun and shot Moyers point-blank in the face. As the deputy fell to the ground, McDowell leaned out of the van and fired twice more into his back. He turned to Gale and coldly said, "It was me or him. I wasn't going back to jail." McDowell slammed the van into gear, speeding away into the night, leaving Moyers bleeding and unresponsive on the roadside. Only 30 seconds later, another deputy arrived to assist, only to find his friend and mentor gasping his final breaths. And that single gunshot echoed far beyond Sandy Ford Road, because it wasn't just the start of a murder investigation. It was the beginning of one of the largest manhunts in Florida's history. Share this video with a friend who follows true crime. Help us spread these stories. By dawn, McDowell had abandoned the van and disappeared into the thick woods surrounding Callahan. Gale, the passenger, managed to escape and turn herself in to deputies, but McDowell was on the move. More than 200 law enforcement officers swarmed Nassau County. Helicopters, drones, armored vehicles, all searching for one man. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement even issued a blue alert blasting McDowell's name and description across every phone in the state. It was the first blue alert many Floridians had ever received. The sheriff warned the public, "Do not approach him. He's armed, dangerous, and desperate." McDowell, however, wasn't just hiding. He was fighting back. In the early hours of September 24th, Jacksonville Sheriff's SWAT team, along with Canine handler Officer Dale Cullen, tracked McDowell's scent. Canine Chaos, a trained police dog, picked up the trail. But when Cullen released the dog, McDowell fired 2 shots. Chaos yelped in pain, injured. Officers fired 18 rounds into the woods, convinced McDowell was shooting back. Somehow, he slipped away again, wounded but alive. For days, schools and neighborhoods stayed locked down. Families were terrified. Deputies combed through swamps and back roads. The woods of Nassau County turned into a war zone. And still, McDowell managed to vanish. Until the 5th day. September 28th, 2021. After days of searching, officers finally cornered McDowell. He had broken into a Little League concession stand near Callahan Intermediate School. When law enforcement moved in, McDowell emerged, crawling, wearing a stolen youth soccer uniform, shorts, and a jersey he had scavenged inside. Weak, dirty, and bitten by canine hook, he was finally subdued. And in a powerful gesture of justice, deputies handcuffed him with the very cuffs that once belonged to Deputy Moyers. The community breathed a sigh of relief, but for Moyers' family, the nightmare had just begun. Because justice doesn't end with an arrest, it drags on through trials, appeals, and endless questions. McDowell faced overwhelming evidence. He pled guilty to first-degree murder, injuring a police dog, and 8 counts of aggravated assault on officers. But the most shocking moment came during the sentencing phase. McDowell himself took the stand, and instead of begging for his life, he admitted everything. He confessed that weeks earlier he had already decided he would kill any officer who tried to arrest him. On the night of September 23rd, he deliberately lured Moyers to a dark road with every intention of pulling the trigger. Then he stunned the courtroom with his final plea to the jury. "I can't take away the pain I've caused, but I can pay for it, so make me pay for it." His words chilled the courtroom. A jury of 12 deliberated. 11 voted for death, 1 voted for life. The decision was now in the hands of the judge. April 2024. Circuit Judge James H. Daniel delivered the final sentence: death. The courtroom fell silent. McDowell sat emotionless, hands clasped, staring straight ahead. Then came the victim impact statements, and they cut deeper than any sentence could. Deputy Moyers' fiancée, Ivy Carter, spoke through tears. She described a man who lived and breathed law enforcement. She said she always knew the risks, but nothing could prepare her for the reality of losing him. His brother Jordan was furious. His voice shook with grief and anger as he told the jury, "When Josh was murdered, this community lost a great cop. I lost my brother, and it has torn my life into shreds." Finally, his mother, Brenda, told the court about their unbreakable bond. She wept as she said, "He deserved so much more. It's a nightmare as parents, knowing our child was brutally murdered while protecting the community he loved." Even Sheriff Bill Leeper didn't hold back his rage. His statement went viral. "Lord willing, when this death sentence is carried out, I'll be sitting on the front row with a box of popcorn, eagerly waiting for him to take his last breath." It was raw, it was angry, and it showed just how deeply this case scarred everyone involved. But while the victims' families finally had some justice, McDowell himself seemed almost relieved. He had asked for death, and now he had it. Patrick Rene McDowell's story is one of the most tragic contradictions in recent memory. A Marine who once fought for his country, a veteran who came home carrying invisible wounds, and yet instead of finding help, he turned to drugs, crime, and violence. By September 2021, he wasn't just a troubled man, he was a danger to the community, to law enforcement, and ultimately to himself. Deputy Joshua Moyers' life was stolen in seconds. He was only 29 years old, with a fiancée, a family, and a career dedicated to service. His death left scars that will never truly heal. And McDowell? He sits on death row, waiting for the state of Florida to carry out the very punishment he demanded. So here's the question I'll leave you with. Does McDowell's struggles with PTSD and addiction make his actions any less evil? Or was this crime so calculated, so cold, that no excuse could ever justify it? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And before you go, don't forget, hit subscribe if you haven't already. You don't want to miss the next case. Because at Death Row Diaries, we don't just tell stories. We preserve the memory of those who were lost, and we confront the chilling truths of those condemned to die. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.